I remember the smell of burnt coffee that morning, the kind that clings to your clothes and your mood. The office was already buzzing, a low hum of keyboards and forced laughter. It was our Monday team meeting, and I was balancing a paper cup in one hand and my notebook in the other, trying to look composed. You could have sworn I was walking into a courtroom, not a conference room. My name's Rachel. I'd worked for 8 years at a mid-sized marketing firm in Nashville. I wasn't the loudest or the flashiest, but I got things done. My clients trusted me, and my coworkers, well, some of them respected me, I think. But that morning, respect was about to become a luxury I couldn't afford. Our manager, Todd, stood at the front of the room with his tie slightly loosened, trying to look approachable. That's how you knew bad news was coming. Todd only got friendly when there was a storm brewing. He glanced at me for half a second, then back at the group. "All right, team," he started with that politician smile. "Before we jump into numbers, there's a quick announcement." My stomach tightened. It was the way people start a sentence when they're about to end something else. "As of today," Todd said, pausing just long enough for my pulse to climb, "Rachel will no longer be with the company." The world didn't stop spinning, but it sure tilted. Chairs creaked, a few heads turned, and someone gasped quietly. He kept talking. Something about restructuring, budgets, blah, blah. I didn't hear it. My ears were roaring. I looked around and saw pity in some eyes, relief in others. No one spoke, not even my so-called friend Jenna, who sat beside me every meeting. He didn't even let me speak, just announced it like I was some forgotten line item. And then, to make it worse, he said, "We'll be redistributing Rachel's accounts this week, so let's give her a round of applause for her hard work." Applause. The sound of clapping never felt so cruel. I stood up, trying not to cry, but my vision blurred anyway. I mumbled something, maybe thank you, and walked out. My heels echoed through that hallway like they were laughing at me. By the time I reached the parking lot, the tears finally came. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was betrayal. I'd given that place years of late nights, missed birthdays, and weekends spent crafting campaigns that won awards with someone else's name on them. And just like that, I was disposable. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a half-eaten bowl of soup and my laptop open. My email was flooded with automated HR notices and empty condolences. One stood out, from Jenna. "I'm so sorry, Rach. I had no idea. Call me if you want to talk."
I didn't, because deep down I knew she'd known something. Everyone always does before the axe falls. Days turned into weeks. I applied for jobs, sent resumes into digital black holes, and replayed that meeting in my head until I could quote every detail. My savings were thinning, and my confidence had vanished entirely. One night, I sat on the porch swing outside my small apartment, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the cicadas. I whispered into the dark, "God, I don't understand. Why would you let this happen?" There was no booming answer, no sudden peace, just the sound of the wind, soft and indifferent. But somehow I felt seen, like he hadn't forgotten me, even if everyone else had. Then came the call. It was a Thursday afternoon, about 3 weeks after the firing. My phone buzzed, and when I saw Todd's name flash across the screen, I froze. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello?" "Rachel, hey," he said in that fake enthusiastic tone. "How are you holding up?" I could have laughed. "I am fine. What's going on?" He hesitated. That was new. Todd never hesitated. "Listen, we've run into a bit of a situation. Remember the Mason project, the one you spearheaded before, your departure?" Of course I remembered. It was my baby, a high-profile rebranding for a national chain that could have doubled the firm's reputation. I'd spent months perfecting it. "Well," he continued, "their launch is in 2 weeks, and, no one here really knows the details like you do. The client's been asking for you by name." I didn't say anything. I just let that hang in the air. "So," he rushed on, "we were hoping you might be willing to consult? Just temporarily, of course. Paid, obviously." I closed my eyes, a bitter laugh catching in my throat. Fired publicly, then called privately for a favor. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You fire me in front of everyone, and now you want my help? He cleared a throat. I know how it sounds, but look, Rachel, we really need you. And the client's willing to pay extra for your involvement. It'd be good exposure, too. Exposure. That word again. The kind that doesn't pay rent. For a moment, I wanted to hang up, to tell him exactly what I thought of him, of all of them. But then I thought of my empty fridge, my overdue electric bill, and that whisper on my porch a week ago, the one that said, wait. So instead, I said, send me the details. Todd exhaled, relieved. Knew we could count on you, Rachel. You're the best. When I hung up, I just sat there, staring at my reflection in the black screen of my phone. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired. That night, I opened my old files, the ones they thought I deleted when they revoked my access. I saw every version of the Mason campaign, every late-night note, every spark of creativity they'd taken for granted. But this time, I wasn't working for them. I was working for something else. Maybe myself. Maybe for the quiet voice that said there was still purpose in this mess. Still, I couldn't shake the irony. The same people who had humiliated me were now coming to me for help. Life has a way of turning tables, but I wasn't sure yet if I was ready to sit back down at theirs.
The next morning, I woke up before the sun. It wasn't because I was eager to help them. It was the kind of restless wake-up that happens when your mind won't let your heart sleep. I brewed a pot of coffee and stared out my kitchen window at the quiet street below. It was the same view I'd seen every day for years, but it looked different now. Emptier, but also maybe open. I opened my laptop and scrolled through the email Todd had sent overnight. Attached was the Mason campaign timeline, a half-finished presentation, and a message full of nervous politeness. We're hoping to have your insight by Friday. The client presentation is next week. Let me know your rate. My rate. I smiled faintly. He hadn't expected me to have one. I typed out a short, professional reply with a number that made me flinch. Because it was bold. The kind of number they used to tell me wasn't in the budget. I hit send and waited. He replied in less than 10 minutes. Approved. Just please keep this between us. Between us. Of course. They didn't want anyone in the office knowing they needed me again. I spent that day combing through the work I'd once poured my heart into. The Mason campaign had been about restoring trust for a brand that had lost its reputation. Funny how art imitates life. As I reworked the presentation, I realized I wasn't just fixing a marketing pitch. I was reclaiming something of myself. By Friday, I'd refined their entire strategy. I sent the file to Todd with a simple note. Done. He called within an hour. Rachel, this is amazing, he said, sounding more human than I'd ever heard him. You saved us. Seriously. The Masons will be thrilled. Glad to hear it, I said flatly. He hesitated again, like there was more he wanted to say but couldn't find the words. We, might need your help at the client meeting next week, just for the presentation. I laughed softly. Todd, are you sure that's a good idea? Considering everything? He chuckled awkwardly. Honestly, you're the only one who can pull this off. Something in me stirred, not pride, but resolve. All right. I said one meeting. The following Thursday, I walked back into that glass building for the first time since they'd publicly humiliated me. My reflection in the lobby doors looked different, stronger. My hair was tied neatly, my blazer pressed. I wasn't coming in as their employee. I was coming in as the expert they couldn't replace. When I stepped into the conference room, heads turned. Some looked surprised, others uncomfortable. Jenna's mouth fell open.
Rachel? You're back? Just for today, I said, smiling faintly. Consulting.
Todd clapped his hands. All right, let's focus, people. The Masons will be here any minute. During the presentation, I felt my nerves settle into something steady and sure. Every word, every slide, every idea, it was mine. And when the clients nodded, smiling, I could feel the shift in the room. Even Todd's usual smugness was gone. When it was over, Mr. Mason shook my hand firmly. That was brilliant, Rachel. You've clearly put a lot into this. Thank you, I said. It's a team effort. The words tasted bittersweet, but they were true in spirit, if not in fact. After the meeting, as everyone filed out, Todd lingered. Can we talk? I followed him to his office, the same office I'd cried outside of weeks before. He closed the door and sighed, leaning against his desk. Listen, I owe you an apology. I said nothing. Just waited. I handled that all wrong, he said finally. The way we let you go, it wasn't fair. You didn't deserve that. I crossed my arms, studying him. Why did you? He swallowed. The higher-ups wanted cuts, and your department was easiest to justify. I didn't fight hard enough. I thought, you'd be fine. You always are. That doesn't make it right. I know. He ran a hand through his hair. I'm sorry, Rachel. Really. For a long moment, I just stood there, feeling the tension between anger and something softer. Grace, maybe. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was the space where forgiveness could start to grow. I appreciate that, I said. But I think we both know some things can't go back to how they were. He nodded. Understood. For what it's worth, you made this place better. You still do. As I left his office, I passed Jenna in the hallway. She looked at me with guilt written all over her face. Ratch, can we talk? She asked. Sure. We stepped into the break room, the same one where we'd shared countless lunches and whispered jokes. Now it felt like a ghost town. I wanted to tell you that day. I swear I did. Todd told us not to say anything. I felt sick about it. I looked at her, searching her face. I get it. You were scared. I was, but that doesn't make it okay. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Rachel. Something in me unclenched then. Maybe it was because I saw my old self in her, the version of me who used to bite her tongue to survive. It's all right, I said softly. You did what you thought you had to do. She nodded, tears spilling over. I missed you. I smiled faintly. I missed me too. When I walked out of that building again, the air felt different, lighter, like a weight had finally lifted. I didn't know what would come next, but for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. That night, I sat by my window with a cup of tea instead of coffee. The city lights blinked in the distance, and I couldn't help but replay everything that had happened. The humiliation, the apology, the unexpected offer from Mr. Mason. It all felt like some divine reversal. It's my response to Mr. Mason's job offer. Every line of it felt like a crossroads. Taking the job would mean a new beginning, but it also meant closing the chapter on a season that had broken and remade me. I thought of Todd's apology, of Jenna's tears, of the God I'd whispered to in the dark. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt grateful. Not for the pain, but for what it had taught me about myself and about Grace. I hit send. The next morning, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Todd. Heard about the Mason offer. You deserve it, Rachel. Congratulations. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Then I typed back, Thank you, Todd. I genuinely hope things turn around for the team. I meant it, every word, because holding on to bitterness wouldn't free me, it would just keep me tethered to the place I'd already outgrown. A week later, I started my new job. Walking into the Mason headquarters felt like stepping into sunlight after years of gray skies. The office was warm, modern, filled with creative energy. People smiled, not the forced kind, but the genuine kind that made you want to do your best. Mr. Mason greeted me personally. He said, "We're thrilled you're here. You have the freedom to build your team however you see fit." Freedom. I hadn't realized how much I'd been craving that word. The first few months were a whirlwind. I hired a small team, young, eager, unpolished, but full of heart. I poured everything I'd learned, every scar and every bit of wisdom, into leading them differently than I'd been led. We worked late nights, yes, but we laughed too. We celebrated small wins. We prayed quietly before big meetings, not out loud, but in spirit. I wanted this place to be more than just a workplace. I wanted it to be redemptive. One afternoon, about 4 months in, I got an unexpected email. It was from Jenna. "Hey, Rachel. I hope you're doing well. Things have been rough at the firm since you left. Todd resigned last month. A few of us are looking for something new. I remember you mentioned Mason's expanding. Any chance you're hiring?" I stared at the screen, torn between surprise and a slow, rising smile. The same people who once looked away when I was humiliated were now reaching out for help. I sat back, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. Life really does come full circle, doesn't it? I replied, "Hi, Jenna. Yes, we're growing. Send me your resume. I'd be happy to take a look." When she joined a few weeks later, it was strange at first, like seeing a ghost from another life. But she was humble, grateful, and different, and so was I. One evening, as we finished up a project together, she looked at me and said, "I can't believe you gave me another chance after everything." I smiled. Everyone deserves one. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "You've changed, Rach. You're lighter." "Maybe because I finally learned how to let go," I said softly. She laughed. "Well, it looks good on you." That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the quiet office. The hum of the air conditioning and the faint city sounds outside felt almost like music. I thought about how different my life looked now. There had been a time I'd begged God for a way out of that old job, even if I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I'd prayed for something new, but I hadn't imagined the path would lead through public humiliation, loneliness, and letting go of everything I thought I needed. Yet here I was, restored, not just with a better job, but with peace. A few weeks later, our division launched its first major campaign. It was bold, honest, and full of heart. The results exceeded every expectation, and Mr. Mason threw a celebration dinner. At the end of the evening, he stood up and raised a glass. "To Rachel, the woman who taught us that integrity and vision still matter, and that sometimes being broken first is what allows us to lead with grace." The room applauded, but I could hardly hear it. My eyes were full of tears. Afterward, I stepped outside to catch my breath. The night air was cool and the stars were scattered like promises across the sky. I whispered, almost to myself, "Thank you." Because in that moment, I knew redemption doesn't always arrive with trumpets or fanfare. Sometimes it shows up in the quiet,
in the stillness after the storm, when you finally understand that being fired wasn't the end, it was the favor you didn't know you needed. And for the first time, I didn't just believe that everything had happened for a reason, I could see the reason. The next morning, I opened my email to find another message, this time from Todd again. Hey, Rachel. Hope you're well. I've been doing some freelance consulting since leaving the firm. Saw your new campaign. Stunning work. I'd love to catch up if you're open to it. No business talk, just coffee. I smiled. There was no bitterness left, no old wound to reopen, just gratitude for how far we'd both come. Sure, Todd. Coffee sounds good. Because maybe that was the final piece of the lesson. Grace doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means remembering it without pain. And as I closed my laptop, I felt that same quiet peace settle around me again, the kind that doesn't come from getting even, but from being free. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving them wrong. It's becoming the person you were meant to be all along.